Lastly out, welcome back. So, the subject of the day, the week, the year. The UK has voted to leave the EU. Now what? Clearly we now have months, if not years, of negotiations ahead between what we deal with, where we deal with it, how we put it in place, the structure of the deal. Is it an interim deal? What happens next? Whether or on a national level between businesses, the legality of the Brexit leaves huge question marks. All that is certain is that a great many lawyers will be involved. Luckily, we've got one that's come to see us this morning who's going to give us an idea of A, how busy he's going to be, and B, what exactly the net result of all this is going to look like. Gavin Williams is a partner at Herman Smith and Freehills and has very kindly got up on a Sunday morning to see us. Clearly, there is a huge tension now that exists in a number of areas. I just want to kind of focus, first of all, on... Friday was a very busy day for the financial markets, and that's going to create a huge amount of tension as people try and understand the contracts and kind of how businesses are going to be affected. How much more difficult does market volatility make your job in some ways?
Guy, I think it breaks down into two or three pieces. This, I mean, the market volatility which we'd anticipated and discussed with our clients before Friday came through. Not quite as markedly as I think some people feared. Yep. People were looking at larger numbers in terms of the pound coming off and the markets going down, but it's still very significant. And so market volatility is a big piece of this. Then it clearly flows through into sort of what happens next, if you like, and that sort of divides into two camps. I think probably on the one hand, potential impact economically of contracting demand, drop in investor confidence, drop in consumer confidence, which then will feed through into cash flows of businesses, which will put strain on legal relationships. And then there's the longer term question of, what's the new relationship going to be? And that's going to be all about the negotiations that the EU 27 are keen to start more quickly, and that the UK is likely to want to take its time over in order to achieve the best result.
Gavin, give us a sense of Article 50. All the 27 EU that remain seem to be gathering together to say we want this triggered as quickly as possible. What does that mean in terms of the legalese that happens within the United Kingdom? Do we still abide by EU rules once that is triggered?
Sure, Caroline. So, I mean, as things stand today, and as they did on Friday morning when the result came in, nothing's changed from a legal point of view. A lot changed, as we've said, from a market's perspective, but nothing changed on Friday from a legal point of view. And that will remain the case until the UK actually ceases to be a member of the European Union. And in principle, that will be no sooner than 2 years after the date on which the British government elects to serve notice on the Council of the European Union. Now, that's not happened yet, and that's what the European leaders in some quarters are agitating for the UK to do swiftly. On the UK side, of course, there may be benefit from taking a little time to reflect on precisely what the deal is that's going to be negotiated for. It's important to remember that the people campaigning to leave the EU were united by the desire no longer for the UK to be a member of the EU. But within that group, there were a broad church of views ranging from very hard left-wing protectionist campaigners right the way across the political spectrum to right-wing libertarians. And so how they will come together and form a consensus on what the UK's bargaining position is going to be an interesting thing.
If you, as the French seem to want to do, wanted to punish the UK, from a legal point of view, kind of what are the left-hand outcomes? What are the kind of the really dire positions that the legal profession could throw at the UK?
Well, the UK economy is 80% services-led,
right.
And here in the City of London, financial services account for a good proportion of that. The financial services industry based in London relies on what are known as passports in order to access the European market. And there's going to be a real tension, I think, around market access on the one hand, so the UK wishing to preserve the ability of the city to access the 500 million inhabitants of the European Union, and on the other hand, the desire to restrict freedom of movement of people, particularly immigration, the right to work and live in the UK. And I think that's where we're going to see the debate really focus.
Gavin, you're an M&A specialist. Talk to us about, perhaps, the M&A world. Deutsche Börse are, of course, looking to buy up LSE. Is that deal going to go through? How much would M&A start to unravel? Deals already agreed, for example?
Well, in the run into the vote, Caroline, deals were already being delayed. We saw a drop in private equity activity in the 3 or 4 months preceding the vote fall off by sort of 30–40%. There are a number of big deals in the market, and we know that there are political sensitivities around the Deutsche Börse LSE deal. That deal is obviously subject to regulatory approval, and including in the German state of Hesse, and a lot's been written in the press in the last couple of days about whether there remains the political will in Germany to see the leadership of their exchange split between London and Germany in the way that's been proposed.
Were there clauses written into contracts?
There were a number of clauses written into deals towards the end. People still wanted to write business in the last 6 or 8 weeks in the run-up to the vote, but it was relatively low profile. Very few big deals had Brexit clauses in them, or MAC clauses with Brexit conditionality in them. For the most part, people who were nervous about it just put things off. They didn't sign transactions. You saw the house builders were down massively, 30%. Yeah. UK banks down massively, 30%. Yeah. You're already hearing talk of people wanting to buy houses in London because they're now just so much cheaper. Does that apply to UK assets? Like, in terms of just the deal flow you would expect to see? No, absolutely. Is there going to be an opportunity here? There'll be certainly people who see it as an opportunity. There'll be others who see it as a reason not to proceed. And I think those are the two sides of any... Those two will balance each other out, do you think? Or... It's very difficult to say. I think anybody who tells you now what the impact on deal flow is going to be over the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months is probably leading you a merry dance, Guy. I think the truth is people take a moment to take stock. The market volatility we saw on Friday, I think, is probably going to stabilise, but it's difficult to know where and how quickly the pound might come back and the equities markets might come back. I think just in terms of the regulatory environment, I think the reason you're seeing banks hit hard and financial stocks hit hard is because they are subject to a regulatory environment which is largely driven by EU rules. And so why would you be investing in organisations with big UK market exposure, which are going to be hit both by consumer confidence and by regulatory change? And I think that's why investors, certainly on Friday, became nervous. Now, that confidence might come back. And as a lawyer, it's not really my place to speculate on that sort of thing. But I think that's really where the crux of this lies, is that the market had a shock. They're now trying to come to terms and understand what just happened. And I think a lot has been said to indicate that this is going to be a long process. While the Article 50 notice might be served relatively soon, it's still going to take an awfully long time to untangle 40 years of legal relationships with Europe, and even longer still to put in place a new deal. The Canadian Free Trade Agreement that's been cited in the run-up to the referendum took the best part of 7 years to negotiate and still hasn't been ratified by the 27 or 28 members of the EU. So any alternative, however close it is to the existing set of arrangements, is going to be the focus of a very, very difficult negotiation. No kidding.
Uncertainty and risk and volatility. One certainty is that you're going to be a busy man. Gavin Williams, partner at Herbert Smith Freehills, thank you very much indeed for your time this morning.